Snap UK podcast. I'm Griff, and I'm at Chateau Green with Jim and John. Say hi.
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 It's been 3 months, or the best part of, since our last podcast. And now, despite being 2 members of the team short, shout out to Gary and Paul. Hi, guys. It's time to get back to podcasting and looking forward to the forthcoming 2021 NFL season. It's fair to say that in the 3 months that have elapsed, we have plenty of things to pick up on, lots of points to discuss. So we will be opening the forum this evening for a roundtable discussion between the three of us on any topics we wish to bring to the table.
NFL related.
Yeah, if you like. I mean,
I was going to big up Kanye's divorce.
Yeah, we've got the cricket on in the background. No, we won't talk about her. But before we get to that, we have to cover the serious and ongoing consequences of that aforementioned apocalypse that is COVID-19. So we'll clear that out of the way at the start of the podcast.
Really wish we could clear it out of the way.
Yeah, that'd be grand. We're going to have a bit of a frank discussion about that before we dive into the slightly more entertaining topics, because I think we've all had enough of COVID by now.
Yeah. I mean, can I just add, it's really nice to be doing this in person.
In person.
Like, I can see my mates, there's a dog here, and that's the sound of me licking Jim.
Podcast dog is quite prevalent this evening. Who has a dog and then puts her on a wooden floor and tries to record a podcast in the same room?
It's an interesting combination.
It really is, but I like it. It's like having your own backing drummer. Okay, let's tackle the serious subject first. The impact of COVID on the forthcoming NFL season. The impact we knew would be there, and there's already been a fairly significant hit on several teams. The Vikings have lost assistant coach Rick Dennison. The Patriots have lost joint O-line coach Cole Popovich, because these two guys have taken their decision to not be vaccinated, and unvaccinated members of staff incur certain restrictions this season, meaning they won't be able to partake in some activities, they can't approach various places in the grounds. And if teams are forced to postpone games because of a COVID outbreak through unvaccinated members of the teams, they effectively are penalised by losing the game.
And they have to pay the other players in the other team as well, because the team doesn't have to pay the players for the game. The team who are responsible for the outbreak also have to pay. Yeah, so there's another little twist in there. I mean, I think this all comes down to, I think the NFL did amazingly well last year, to get to the end of the season relatively unscathed, but to hold all 16 regular season games within a 17-week period. Yep, there was a lot of moving around, and I'm sure there's some very stressed organisers and what have you, but they did exceptionally well. I don't think they want to take that risk this year, and I don't know, but I'm going to take a wild guess to say the revenue that the NFL made last year isn't as high as what it would be in a normal year, either through fans not attending or through sponsorship opportunities lost or advertising opportunities lost. And end of the day, NFL's a business. It's very money driven. I think they want to stamp out the risk this year of games being moved or games being postponed or cancelled, and are doing everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen. Taking this move, it puts the emphasis back onto the clubs to try and get players and staff vaccinated. I'm not going to sit here and say everyone should get vaccinated. That's my own personal opinion. Some people are anti it, and fair enough, whatever you decide. But in a business situation, you've got to try and minimise the risk to your revenue, and this is exactly what the NFL are doing. And I expect that's what most of the clubs will then try and do.
Yeah, it seems to be. I think a stat that in 14 of the teams, 90% of the staff now are vaccinated. I think 85% of players are now got at least a single vaccination. But I mean, can the league survive without Cole Beasley? Is the question. But it's not. But that it's flippant. But it's not. As it's emerged this week, it's not just Cole Beasley who is not getting vaccinated.
DeAndre
John
Hopkins is the big name.
DeAndre Hopkins is the big name who is celebrating his bumper 2-year contract by potentially not playing if it comes to a choice of being vaccinated or not, or playing.
And that's their choice. I mean, clubs have to. When you join a business, either as an employee, there's a certain number of rules that you have to abide by. And if NFL clubs choose to say, right, to play for us, you have to have a vaccine.
It's no different to a club saying, this is your uniform.
Yeah.
You will wear this. And that applies to all of us. We have all worked in what you would term as, I was going to say the word menial. That's not what I meant. But jobs where effectively you've started at the bottom, you've been thrown a Burger King outfit or whatever, and you've been told, this is your uniform, put it on. And for me, vaccines are the same. You are correct to say it's everybody's free choice. I don't understand why people are choosing not to have it, having witnessed the destruction it's caused across the world. I don't understand, but it's not for me to understand other people's choices. But I think everything should be done to encourage all the players of all backgrounds, ages, everything. Get yourself vaccinated. Do not be a health risk to other people in this league, because the NFL, along with a lot of other sports, and we watched players bubble so they could watch the play in the cricket last year, the Premier League played, that entertainment kept people going. And if you like, for the first time in a long time, the NFL has a responsibility to promote vaccinations amongst there's a diverse number of people in the NFL, so they should be promoting that at the same time as continuing to provide their entertainment service. I cannot understand what the negative consequence of the vaccine is supposed to be and why it's causing players who previously, DeAndre Hopkins has struck me as an extremely articulate and intelligent person, and I do not get it. I can't necessarily say the same about Cole Beasley. He's a bit of a one-hit wonder, is Cole Beasley. Like, there's something there that I don't quite get.
If you've heard his rap career, he's
no-hit wonder.
No-hit wonder.
Yeah, but I don't understand what the resistance is exactly. And I know people personally who've chosen not to get vaccinated, and I've not had an upfront discussion with them, but that doesn't mean I understand why they're doing it, because we're all doing our best to make sure we can all proceed, meet up like this, do a podcast, play sports at the weekend, or work normally, or whatever it might be. And some people don't seem to be towing the line, and I would love for someone to explain it to me other than it's my choice.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. It seems to be asking a lot.
It does. Okay. That's the impact of COVID, right?
Yeah.
We know that there will be somewhere along the line a problem. They coped very well with it last year. But all we can do is tackle it as it comes along. It's
another one of those subjects that we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, because it's the very nature of it. You can. I mean, the vaccine, they can be proactive, but there are times when they're going to have to be reactive, and the rules are in place now. Let's see. Let's hope that we don't get it gets to a point where a team misses out on the playoffs, for instance, because they missed a game because of COVID.
I don't think that will happen. I think the NFL will still pull all the stops to play every game because they are worth so much money on TV. But yes, the rules are there to frighten the teams, basically, to making sure this is done. And I think that's fair. Right. I wanted to get away from COVID. We all do. I've had enough. We're going to have our roundtable discussion of topics that we think need a mention or a discussion. I'm dropping 2 in very early that you are banned from bringing up. We're just going to discuss them up front. They do not count as things you can then bring up.
Better write these down.
Yeah. The first one is Aaron Rodgers has reported to training camp for the Packers, and is reportedly going to play for them in 2021 on the proviso that he can be traded to wherever he chooses in 2022 if he's still unhappy with the team. this is the gamble that the Packers are prepared to take. The caveat or the aside to this is as well that the contract talks with Davante Adams have gone down the pan, and he and Rodgers seem to be in lockstep. Now, I don't know. What's the chap's name? Brian Gutekunst.
Gutekunst.
That's him. If I were the Packers, I'd just be binning him off and saying, can we keep our quarterback and our wide receiver who win us everything? But that's not the way they're going to go, clearly, because they don't have any leadership as an organisation.
Our quarterback who won us one thing.
Well, yeah, but where would they be without he and Davante Adams?
They'd be a lot worse.
They'd be a lot worse. They'd probably, but I mean, prophesize? They'd probably still be out in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it seems.
I'm not sure they'd make the playoffs. I mean, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers' biggest fan as well.
I'm a huge Rodgers fan, but yeah, I just think there is enough there. They've got a very creative coach as well. I think that they could. I mean, without Rodgers, they aren't going to be as good. They probably scrape through. They might I don't think they're getting into the playoffs without Rodgers. But yeah, it's it seems like the power is all in Rodgers' court, even going forward. It's very The Last Dance, isn't it? Esque.
Yeah, it is. So, do you remember who played for the Packers the last times Aaron Rodgers was unable to play?
Yeah.
Scott Tolzien.
Well, they've also had
Hundley.
Deshaun Kaiser and Brett Hundley.
Kaiser, yeah.
And they were both chuffing awful.
They were bad.
And now those players still had most of Aaron Rodgers' weapons around them, and they couldn't move the ball, let alone win games. So, whilst, and I also am not the world's biggest Aaron Rodgers fan, but credit where it's due, he's gone through his little 2 or 3 season blip where he regressed rather than, it wasn't terrible, but he regressed. And he's now right at the top of his game. Was he not MVP last year?
He was MVP last year, yeah. I think the 2 years previous, not to say he was a bad player, but he just, it was his attitude that stunk, that used to annoy me. That changed this year. I think when the rumour came out on draft day that he wanted a trade, I felt like that was just, I felt like that he's just playing them.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely stitched them up. And then to release that on draft day of all days, it was a complete stitch up. And I think if you're a Packers fan, you obviously don't want to see Aaron Rodgers go. But in the cold light of day, the guy's 38, still a brilliant player, and we've seen now that quarterbacks can go on into their mid-40s apparently.
One.
Yeah, you could get 2-3 first-round picks for him. You've got a quarterback sat in the wings that you've spent a first-round pick on last year. You've got a play caller who actually, comes from the Shanahan tree, and it's in certain circumstances, it's more about the run game, so it's more creative. I got to be thinking, do you trade him now and get what you can for him before you then pay him for another whole season and give him the rights to negotiate where he wants to go? At least if they were to trade him now, it's down to them where he goes.
Who's taking him? Who's giving up 3 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers?
Denver.
3 first-round picks?
Maybe 2, something else.
I don't know. Anyone would be delighted to see him on their team for a season if they got him for free or a 2nd or 3rd round pick. But the guy causes trouble. That's evidenced by what's happening. No one's saying they don't want him, but what is he worth when he comes with so much baggage? He's not worth 3 first-round picks, even if he is Aaron Rodgers. So, you wouldn't give up 3 first-round picks for Tom Brady. He's won everything, but he's 59 years old. There is a limit. You wouldn't do it. So you wouldn't do it for Rodgers, would you?
No, God no, not 3 first-round. Yeah, it's just not. There's no value. But for the only team that I can see there being value in it is the Broncos, because they've got nothing, and then they at least have something.
And the weapons are good, and he'd probably go there.
Yeah,
but you'd be giving up so much.
Yeah, I think if he did end up in Denver, you'd almost make them Super Bowl favourites.
I think so.
because they've got a good defense, they've got great weapons. Their offensive line play was better last year than it has been for the last 10 years.
The question would be on the coach.
But do you need to have such a good coach if you've got someone as good as Rodgers playing at quarterback?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but that's where the weakness would be, if you like.
Yeah. He's a good defensive coach.
I think you need a strong coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not sure that those two personalities would mesh necessarily.
That's true.
Also, the other half of this discussion, if you like, is Jordan Love. Who's seen Jordan Love? What's he done?
No one, because he's not had an opportunity yet.
Okay.
Give him a snap and we'll see. But
this is what I mean. Like, the Packers are sort of gambling on him being the next Aaron Rodgers. Like, Rodgers stepped up after Favre. And the chances of a team doing that twice in succession?
Slim
to do it
none.
the first time.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, it's they looked out that they got Rodgers so low in the draft, and then they waited and waited and waited, and basically to the point where they couldn't wait anymore. But he's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. No one really is. But yeah. At least if it happened this summer, he's like, so the weapons are crap, but maybe that's something you could do in a trade. At least he got a running game. Aaron Jones, despite what some people have said, is an elite runner.
Hi, Gary.
Almost the longest running story in the podcast.
Pretty much. He did say the guy was shit.
Yeah.
So, just saying.
But yeah, there is some bits around whoever comes in, if it was to move on, but still, it's they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't.
Okay, so there's three of us at the table. Quick vote then before we move on. All those who think he starts for the Packers this season say aye. Aye. So there you go. 3. I don't think he's moving either.
No, I don't think he is.
Okay, fine. The second topic, which you cannot bring up in your round table, is Deshaun Watson returning to the Texans and basically reporting so he doesn't lose $50,000 a day for not turning up.
He's got a lot of legal bills to pay, hasn't he? So.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing, as I was saying to you guys before we started, is the way the law works in the States means that he can't be deposed until, I think it's the 22nd of February next year. So he could play the whole season. Or he could play no part in the season if he gets suspended by the commissioner. Or he could play some part in the season. Or he could be traded, which is what he wants. Now, the Texans are now saying they will accept a trade if they get the right offer. But
I bet they will.
But they've left it too late. This is typical Texans. I'll give you a demonstration of typical Texans. We are now 16 months removed from David Johnson being swapped for DeAndre Hopkins with the Cardinals, possibly one of the worst trades of all time.
Hey, David Johnson might play this year.
Look, David Johnson actually outshone what most people thought he would achieve last year, but he's not DeAndre Hopkins. There was no value in that for the Texans. The Texans had the opportunity to trade Deshaun Watson months back when he first said, this is terrible, I want out of here. And they'd have got 3 or 4 first-round picks.
And they were desperate for draft capital as well.
Yeah, they would have got it. Now, who is going to give up much? Because you don't know, you could be getting a generational talent that you don't see for the next 2 years, if at all. So why would you give up very much at all? Why are you taking that gamble?
There are no other owners in the league. I say that, though, there are some really stupid owners. But, I don't think there are any dumb enough to do it. But, the nice thing with the NFL is I always wait to be surprised. But
it's not. Well, they're not.
I think that at some point someone's going to have to make a decision on him, and I think the decision needs to come from the commissioner, because effectively the Texans are currently playing a bloke who they want rid of. What they want rid of. He's turning up to a team he doesn't want to play for, and all the while it's an absolute stain on the NFL that he's still an active member, because he's, it's quite a litany of charges he's up against here.
Yeah,
and
with respect, we have no idea how that's going to go. And I'm not often one for sitting on the fence, and that's fine. They haven't actually said one way or another whether this is going to stick. That's the thing. It's not even like this is definitely going to happen at some point. It may all just disappear. And we've seen players in the past be booted out of teams. Kareem Hunt, okay, hoofed out of a team because, by all accounts, he did something dreadful. Look at him now. He's now sailing back up the list of great players. He's playing on a team where effectively he's the second running back and he's one of their best 4 or 5 players. He was amazing last year. He's had a complete career resurgence, and you could get that from Deshaun Watson. He could be traded away, sit 6 months out while things get sorted, and then come back next season and be phenomenal for years. Or you could get a player who ends up mired in legal trouble for years and never is able to play again.
I mean, the biggest difference there is that you're going to have to, if you take on Deshaun Watson, you're going to have to pay. You have to pay him on his current contract. If you're trading for him,
yeah.
And Kareem Hunt, he's one of the cheapest running backs in the league because of the situation he was in, and because John Dorsey was then GM of the Browns. He selected him when he was GM of the Chiefs. He knew the player. He took a gamble. You can afford to take a gamble when you're only paying a player circa $1 million a year. When you're paying a player $30 million a year upwards, it's a much bigger risk. I think your point earlier, like the Texans have left it too late. It's a typical Texans move because they should have traded him as soon as he put the request in, and if they had an offer on the table for 2 or 3 first-round picks, they should have snapped their hand off because you had a player who doesn't want to be there. Forgetting all the legal problems that then ensued, you had got a player who doesn't want to be there. They had no draft capital. They were in a rebuild mode. They've let JJ Watson go. JJ Watson. What? Deshaun Watson, JJ Watt. God, it's been a while, hasn't it? So that's when they should have known. Now I'll be lucky. They'll be lucky to get a first round pick for him. If anything happens, he's going to go for next to nothing. But I don't see a team who's going to give up draft capital for him and then pay his contract based on we don't know what's going to happen with him.
No.
Yeah.
It's too unpredictable. I suspect there's some sort of commissioner's exemption coming, some sort of list that he'll find himself on. As we did with the last discussion, all those who think Deshaun Watson starts game 1 for the Texans say aye.
Silence.
A resounding silence. All those who think Tyrod Taylor starts say aye.
Aye.
And to finish it off, all those who think we see, is it Miles Davis? Davis Miles? I can't remember which way round the name goes.
Davis Mills, is it?
Well, the 3rd round draft pick that they took. I hate to sound sketchy on this, but I mean, the guy was barely anything coming into the draft, and that's who they picked up because they didn't have any draft capital.
He played 8 games, I think, for Stanford. And some of the scouts were actually really up on him. And he's like, okay, he's not going to be a first-round pick because he's only played 8 games. But that small level amount of games that he played, in that game he showed that he actually could be a decent quarterback. So,
but he's not ready to lead a team in his first season.
Oh, God, no.
But they're going to have to make a decision on what they're going to do. Tyrod's there on a year-long contract. We know what the Tyrod story is. He comes in, he plays okay for 4 games, he gets injured, and then somebody else plays.
Gets stabbed by the coach.
Yeah, whatever it might be.
It was an extreme example last year.
Yeah, but it was this, it was a similar story at the Browns. It was a similar story at the Bills. Like, this is how his career goes. If they're going to tread water for a season, he's a perfectly fine quarterback to do that with. But he's not your quarterback of 2022. No. So then you've got to look at Davis Mills to see whether he is your quarterback of 2022. He is.
No, he's not.
But then they're stuck again because then they've got to spend draft capital that they can ill afford on another quarterback. So Texans fans, pick another team. It's going to be a long, long road.
At least it will be the first pick. No, will it actually? Have they traded it away?
No, they've still got it. They're kind of back to they've now over that whole
the Bob situation
and the Olivia Vernon,
the Bob situation,
Laramie Tunsil trade that really cost them.
Yeah,
it really did. Right, we're reining that in. They were the 2 topics that you were not allowed to select for your round table. John's been trying to eye up my list upside down to see what I think is coming, but that's not how it's going to work. I'm going to let one of you 2 pick a topic that you think we need to cover, and we'll go for it. And when I think we've had enough, we'll move on to another one. That's pretty much how it's going to work. John.
So the first one I'm going to bring up, because we haven't podcasted for 3 months. Some stuff has happened, so I think we should start with Julio to the Titans.
It's a good start. Julio to the Titans. Lead off. What do you think?
Great.
Not if you're a Falcons fan.
Not if you're a Falcons fan, but
great for Julio and great for the Titans.
I mean, it's what the Titans need. I mean, Tannehill if he was fine last year. More weapons for him, brilliant as well. I know they have Derrick Henry, who can seemingly just run and run and run, but one day he will be stopped. Especially if you're going to run him 96 times a game, which is what they're doing. So yeah, I mean, the more options for the Titans, the better. Wasn't very expensive, so for them, great. For Falcons, they've got rid of what is effectively a generational talent, because he was. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he's on his way down now, but I mean, he's still. Is he still averaging 93 yards a game, which is still the highest in the NFL ever? So, hopefully that doesn't take a hit now he's moved on. But for Matty Ryan, I'd be quite angry.
I don't think it's terrible for the Falcons. I think you hit on the point where Julio Jones hasn't been the same player the last couple of years as he was probably the first 5, 6, 7 years of his career. They got rid of him. He's 32, I think. So realistically, he's not going to suddenly kind of hit a kind of a second wind. They brought in Kyle Pitts, who again could be another generational talent at tight end. They got Calvin Ridley. Matt Ryan is a good enough quarterback to get the ball to receivers who aren't Julio Jones.
Oh yeah, I mean but still it's you're now Calvin Ridley is your de facto number one. Whereas he was still getting quite a few. He gets quite a few yards last year and the year before, because you have to cover Julio, and maybe now Kyle Pitts will benefit from Calvin Ridley being the guy they have to cover. I don't know. Let's see. The Falcons to me are just still swimming in bang average.
Yeah, I mean, they're a team in rebuild. Yeah. Absolutely sure. Whereas I think the Titans are a win now team. I think they lost Corey Davis and they lost Jono Smith, bringing in another target, the likes of Julio Jones, maybe changed his game slightly so he doesn't get upfield as much and he becomes more of a dominant physical presence. That
I honestly think the Titans have made themselves favourites for the AFC South with that move. I really do. I know you're all going to ponder. You're going to say Carson Wentz to the Colts. Is that going to be enough?
The thing is, Carson Wentz to the Colts to me is still just a bit of a, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a roll of the dice. Yeah. We've just discussed the Texans. They're not going to do anything. And the other team there are the Jags. So well done. Titans walking into the playoffs. That's exactly what they needed. You cannot cover Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, and Julio Jones. You cannot do that. One of those players is going to be available on each play.
Yep.
So they're just going to march up and down the field. As long as their defence is good enough, which last year at times it was poor for a defensive coach. Yeah. It was poor. But as long as their defence is good enough, they'll stroll that division. They'll certainly stroll the start of the season until we see whether Carson Wentz is up to speed. The Texans and the Jags are not going to be a threat. I know we're going to get later into this series of podcasts. We're going to do reviews of all the divisions, but come on now. Tell me you're not picking the Titans.
I mean, if I get AFC South, I can give you my review now, and it's the Jags and the Texans, and that is there's. I mean, it's
a two-team division.
It's a two-team division. I mean, I still look forward to the NFC East being the worst, but that AFC South is going to be a shocking division next year because
really is.
Two of the teams are going to be fighting for number one.
And they're going to be playing like number two.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad.
But yeah, so my first choice was Julio Jones.
Jimothy.
Well, I'm going to go on to what is now actually my second choice because I think it rhymes somewhat off of that last statement. And I actually wrote Griff's hatred of the Jags. I'm going to say Griff and John's hatred of the Jags. I mean, you're both very, very down on the Jags. Now, I said this in a WhatsApp chat we had yesterday. I don't think they're going to the playoffs. I think they'll probably pick in the top 10 next year. But you guys seem to think they'll be fighting for the number 1 pick, where I'm like, they've got a generational talent now at quarterback. They've got all the pieces of the offensive line are returning, and normally when a team brings back all 5 stars to the offensive line, that offensive line is okay, it's decent. They've got a decent running game. The receivers aren't brilliant, but they're not terrible. The defense isn't brilliant, but again, it's not terrible, and it's actually a very young defense. It could get better. I'm not saying they're going to be great, but your hatred and your kind of downright disgust of the Jags, and
I'll jump in.
I don't get it.
I'll cheerlead.
I'll jump in. I understand where I'm going with this one. I have it. Forethought. Firstly, there's no hatred. What I don't like about the Jags is they've been foisted on us in the UK. We're expected to support them, and they've never given us anything to support. They've had one good year in the 10 years I've been really into the NFL, right? One good year.
Yeah, it's Jacksonville.
Yeah, right. So excuse me if I don't care, because I don't care. They're not relevant. How many winning seasons they had in the last 14 seasons?
Not many.
One.
Maybe 1 or 2.
Right.
One.
So I don't care. It's not that I hate them. I just don't care. The second thing is, yes, you've brought in a generational talent. The best quarterback we've seen come out of college since Andrew Luck. With some guy who plays college football quite well, rather than doing the sensible thing and getting an experienced NFL coach.
Quite well. He won 2 championships with 2 different schools.
Yeah, and
the guy's a winner.
Had I known this was going to come up so early, I'd have got my list of coaches who flunked massively in the NFL after being good college coaches.
Granted, that is a risk, but it's not like that.
John, find the timestamp. It won't work. Urban Meyer will be out of there so fast because I don't think it's going to work for him. How long did it take Pete Carroll to be any good in the NFL? Years and years. He went back to college once.
Yep.
Right. Urban Meyer. It won't work. That's what I'm calling this podcast.
I agree.
So Trevor Lawrence is just about to waste at least 1 year. Peyton Manning was generational. His first year was epically crap.
Yes.
He was terrible. Well, that's what you're going to get because everything is on his shoulders.
And this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're going to be brilliant, but I certainly don't think they're going to be picking number 1 or 2 in the draft next year.
They'll be in the top 5.
I think top 10.
They'll be awful this year. The only thing they've got going for them is the Texans will be worse. So,
that's it. Game 1, 6 o'clock on.
Is it Texans?
Sunday, September the 12th. Jags at Texans.
Oh my God, we found the first toilet bowl of the season. That's going to be an awful game.
The Jags win their first game last year, then lost every other game.
Yeah, and do you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they do win that game. But and Trevor Lawrence is likely to be brilliant in the future, but he's not likely to be brilliant with Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer is a stodgy, run-based, old-fashioned football coach. Well, he is though, isn't he? It's gonna be shit. Trevor Lawrence,
Urban Meyer sounds like a puddle in a built-up area.
Trevor Lawrence is going to be great for the Saints in this season.
Yeah,
or someone like that. He when he gets a chance to move on, he should.
Do you know, it's lovely to see John jump off that fence. That's the first thing I'd like to say.
I've got sores in the arse for the last 4 years.
And secondly, it's nice for he and I to be in lockstep because that's also a rarity.
It is rare.
Yeah, look, I'm looking forward to seeing Trevor Lawrence. I just don't care about the Jags.
And I hate them.
Every chuffing year we get those flags.
It's the flags. They're always the shittest flags. Like one year they were made of paper.
And it rained.
It fucking rained. They were made of paper.
It's true.
And which brings up my second point. The UK games.
Okay.
So going back to COVID, because it's going to be tinging the whole season.
Just before, I look forward to the day where we treat the word COVID the same way we treat the word Kaepernick.
We've hushed awe. The Jags sent out an email to their fans today. As it stands now, we are planning to play in London, but it has not been confirmed. We will need to be able to play in a full capacity stadium and not face any travel restrictions. If those requirements are not met, we will end up playing the game in Jacksonville. Tickets will be on sale once the game location is confirmed. This should be finalised as we approach the start of the regular season. That ain't happening.
No.
It's not happening, but do you know the worst thing about that statement is you can always hear people in Jacksonville going, don't make us watch another game over here.
Oh, man.
Because they don't want them either. That's the funniest thing about it. So,
the UK games this year, I'm just going to bring my thing, is the Falcons, Jets, Jags, Dolphins. So it would have been nice to see the Kyle Pitts, and it would be nice to see the Dolphins, but I mean, battle of who cares less. I mean, quite frankly,
they're not. Yeah,
they're not corkers, are they?
No, they're not.
I'd be going because I want to see the Tottenham Stadium.
I think that's fair, and I don't really want anything to do with them either. So
I'm a huge,
do you know what,
huge
stadium,
NFL
that
fan.
stadium is a bitch to get to and from as well.
That's
for us.
it saved me a walk.
Yeah.
Well, you could do with a walk.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll have a subject. Here we go.
Go on then.
My turn. I've gone up and down my list. This is something that at the end of last year, John and I were discussing as well on the podcast. What happens to the Bengals without Joe Burrow? Now, before you jump in, Joe Burrow is being cleared to resume full activity already on his return from his ACL.
Yep.
Yeah.
So does it make it null and void, or does it put even more pressure on the coach? Because we were saying, right, well, the coach is under pressure. They've been terrible for 2 years, but he gets like half a season's leeway because they'll be playing and then insert your quarterback here. You know, whoever it might be. Jeff Driscoll. No, Jeff Driscoll's gone, but whoever it might be.
Well, it'd be a Madden regen or something.
It was one of the Allens, wasn't it? One of the many Allens that backup called Brandon Allen or somebody.
It might be Brandon Allen,
But I think it looks like, anyway.
It is Brandon Allen, yeah.
Brandon Allen. It looks like Joe Burrow might be fit to start the season. More or less pressure on the coach, because I'm not sold on Taylor at all. And I think the Bengals are a good team if they've got Burrow. I think they are a good team. I like Mixon more than anybody else on the podcast. I get that. That's fine. He's
not hard.
Flattered to deceive. Yeah, that's fine.
I have nothing against Mixon.
But
I don't hate Mixon.
But
I still fucking hate the Jags, though. But
I was being told at the end of the last season, last time we were doing podcasts, well, you're going to have to give him another year because you can't judge him on this. If Burrow's back and they are not at 500 by the middle of the season, he's done. Over.
I've been probably the biggest defender of Zach Taylor on the podcast because I do think coaches do need time. This will be now his fourth year?
Third year. Okay, I'll go with fourth, but I think it's third. Go on. I'll look it up.
You look it up while I'm talking.
I think it's third.
Yeah. He's got a number one quarterback. They've invested in their offensive line. They've replaced AJ Green with a receiver who's probably the best in the draft and a former teammate of Joe Burrow. I agree with you. I think Mixon's a good running back, certainly a number one running back. It is his third year. Thank you. I think the excuses are starting to run dry when you're getting into the third, fourth year. And you look at my team, 49ers, Shanahan in his third year, the results came. And I think that's where maybe not mid-season. It might not be mid-season where he goes, but certainly at the end of the season, if they're in the bottom 5, probably bottom 10, he's at risk.
He's 6-25-1 in his first 2 seasons. But
terrible.
More importantly, they finished last in that division both times.
Yeah.
That's a division where Ben Roethlisberger missed the whole of 2019.
Yeah, that was bad.
Like,
that Steelers team was impressively good considering.
Yeah, they perhaps didn't get enough credit. And we know the Ravens are good and the Browns have taken huge steps forward. Yeah. But that's what the Bengals haven't done. There's been no steps forward,
I think
really.
The problems in the previous 2 seasons are the fact that the roster has been terrible. I think it's improved greatly from when Zach Taylor came in to where it is now. So there's less excuses. I'm not saying he has to get to the playoffs, but I think you need to see progress with a full year of Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily have to see them win 50% of their games. What I'm saying is if they're not competitive by mid-season with Joe Burrow, then it's done. It's done.
But I mean, the only good thing is how competitive they were with Joe Burrow last year. But it's going to be like...
they won just as many games with Brandon Allen.
I know, but they were
close.
They were
close, yeah.
You can tell the difference between Brandon Allen and Burrow. But it's going to be like Alex Smith. Whenever he gets sacked, you're just going to be watching it through your eyes. I
often use my eyes to watch things. If I'm honest with you,
watching it through your fingers, because I mean, it's such a bad injury he had. It's going to be as well. It's going to take him time to get once he's at match pace to get there, and I want to see him succeed. He's such a great talent, but I think he's going to be let down by the fact that it's the Bengals, and that's what the Bengals do. They let you down because they're an organisation that is shit.
It is a shame that the quarterback depth isn't there. It's Joe Burrow, and then it's some other guy who Brandon Allen. Did we say
Brandon Allen? Yep.
Because I feel like they are rushing Joe Burrow back. I think to your point, that's the biggest risk. If he gets injured again,
that could be career.
Yeah,
that could be done.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to move on from the Bengals because a bit like the Jags, I just can't take anymore.
I'm getting angry.
Jim,
my go.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for that one. I'm going to go for my number 3 because I don't like my number 1. Is Tom Brady poised to have his best ever season? Now, my theory of this is he had a pretty good season last year. They won the Super Bowl. But, statistically, he wasn't as good as previous year. The Bucs have brought back all 22 starters. They've got all their coaches that he's played for a year with. There's no pandemic where he's forced to do preseason by himself. He's looking...
He's recovered from an injury that we didn't know he had.
Yeah, exactly. He's looking as fit as he's ever looked, both looks-wise and general fitness. Look at the weapons he's got.
I tell you what, I wouldn't necessarily say they're going to win the Super Bowl again because teams don't repeat that easily. But if they don't win a playoff game, something's gone wrong because that team is going to be phenomenal. And he hasn't aged since he was about 35. He just got there and stopped. So unless he gets injured, which is always possible, because at some point, just by sheer weight of numbers, in his career so far, he's been badly injured once. 2011? 10.
Yeah.
Right? At some point, that's 11 years have gone by and he's had virtually no injuries or significant injuries. It's going to happen again because he's effectively had 2 NFL careers and everybody gets injured. So that's my only thing. At some point, the numbers will catch up and you must get injured. But if he doesn't, they'll win at least one playoff game. They must do.
I'm assuming he's still hungover from the Super Bowl party where he tried to throw the trophy into the water. But, I don't think he's on for his best season, but I think he's gone for a really good season.
Yeah.
Which annoys
it kills me as well.
He might not go for the most yards and things he's ever done, but I wouldn't be surprised if he threw the most touchdowns of his career. But just look at the weapons that could be actually receiving touchdowns. Gronk's back for another year as well, and he's not going to be starting slowly like he did last year. Like the guy's going to be up and running. I get the feeling you could be somewhere near right. Like one of the categories is likely to be.
Mike Evans is still there. Godwin's
Cameron
still
Brate,
there.
yeah.
Cameron Brate's still there.
Antonio
Brown's still there. It was a good offensive line. They even signed Leonard Fournette again.
Yeah.
So he's got he played good in that one game.
Yeah, that
counted.
one game. And Ronald Blair was good last year.
Yeah. I'm gonna be so angry when they make the playoffs and get the bye because they're gonna just be so good.
That seems fair. I'm going to piggyback on top of what Jim's just done then.
Oh no!
Right,
jump the queue.
Yeah, I'm going to jump the queue.
John jumped the queue last.
He did. You jumped much else recently?
No.
Right. I'm going to piggyback on the back of the Bucks and say Michael Thomas is injured for the Saints and may miss the first half of the season. Have you seen who his replacement is? Any takers? No, you haven't.
He's got a weird name.
No, he doesn't. Oh, no, he doesn't. They have signed Chris Hogan. Double Super Bowl winning 36-year-old Chris Hogan has come back from a year in Premier Lacrosse and has signed for the Saints today, quote, as a solid replacement for Michael Thomas. Now, in 2016, he had his best statistical season. He had about 600 receiving yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns, and he won the Super Bowl. He also added another Super Bowl with us as a component to a winning team. He is not Michael Thomas, and that Saints team has no Drew Brees.
I was going to say, in that year where he had his best season, he had Tom Brady.
Exactly.
He was basically, his best season, he was basically a tight end.
Yeah.
Because Gronk was injured.
Which is odd because that means they could be playing a tight end quarterback and a wide receiver because they don't have a definitive number one quarterback yet either. So, Saints, what are you doing? Making it easy for the Bucks to get to the playoffs.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it?
Now you know why I jumped the queue.
There you go. Shall I go? Shall I bring one up now?
Well, unless you've got anything else to add on Chris Hogan. You're just dismissing him like that. Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
I mean, I'll dismiss Chris Hogan like that because...
it's
Do
not.
you remember when he went to the Panthers? No, of course you don't.
I remember when he went to the Panthers. I thought, well, actually, do you know what? That might be all right. But
it didn't work, did it?
Didn't work.
No.
The only New England receiver that's gone anywhere and it's ever worked is Wes Welker.
Yeah.
And he had Peyton Manning for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, that helped.
Shit, yeah. Oh, God. Oh, well. So the Steelers, they've signed Melvin Ingram. But have you seen Ben?
He's slim.
Ben does not look like a thumb.
No. Ben has
looks
slimmed
like
down.
Ben looks like an index finger.
Now, he's slimmed down, but I will point out that picture that I sent you, he did seem to be carrying a spare tire or a really big fanny pack around his middle. Other than that, he's definitely slimmed down.
He's slimmed down because he needs to be because his O-line has gone.
Yeah.
He will, I mean, he needs to be...
he's going to have to be peak Ben for them to be halfway good this year.
Yeah.
But the signing of the running back, then, what do we think?
Running back?
Not running back. Defensive end, sorry. What do we think? Like, is that going to be enough on that side of the ball to make what was already a very sturdy defence to be the best defence in the league? Because they were top 5.
Well, it doesn't elevate them. They lost Bud Dupree, didn't they?
Well, this is my point.
So it's a running mate for TJ Watt.
Yeah.
But is it enough? Because I think Ingram is one of my top 5 defensive players most seasons. And I was really surprised that Chargers allowed him to go. I thought they would do more to keep him. Yes, it's all about money. But the Steelers, if the Steelers have a top 2 or 3 defence, that massively takes the pressure off Ben.
It does, but I still don't think it's enough.
No, neither do I. But
I mean, they've had a 2019. They had a great defense with no offense, and they just missed out on the playoffs. Last year, they had a lights out defense, and they lost the first game in the playoffs. More of the same.
Like 5 in a row to end the season.
Yeah, more. I think more of the same.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ben probably starts reasonably well and then just falls off a cliff as the year goes on like last year.
I think the biggest difference is going to be in the running back. If Najee Harris can come in and be a running back rather than James Conner last year, who just wasn't good enough.
Well,
I think that takes a bit of pressure off Ben, but it also takes some pressure off the defense, which at the end of last year was being asked to do too much.
I will say this about James Conner. Yes, he wasn't good enough to be a playoff team's number 1 running back, but at the same time, that O-line and its constituent parts just collapsed as the year went on. Everybody knew Ben was handing the ball off as the year went on because he got less and less able to throw the ball. So a player that was, say, middle of the road, all of a sudden was getting steamrolled every week. Plus he was carrying injuries. I don't think James Conner is as bad as he looked. But G. Harris, which they couldn't do last year. Name 2 members of the Steelers O-line this year.
No, I can't.
No, exactly. And that is a concern because a new running back needs help. Needs someone to open lanes, and he doesn't have it. And if that doesn't work, then the Steelers won't be in the playoffs because Ben will regress as the season goes on. As good as the defense may be, they'll go backwards.
Yeah. No, it's I mean the options for Ben as well, they just seem to be getting less and less. I mean, Juju has been, it was a revelation when he started, and now he just seems a distraction. And I wonder if come Game 5 he regrets not joining the Chiefs for $3 million more than he's getting at the Steelers.
Probably. Who wishes to jump in next? Anyone?
Hang on, is it me next?
It can be.
All right. This covers two teams. Will the Texans and Eagles have the same hierarchy in place this time next year? So it's front office and head coach. Now, these are the two teams I think are picking 1 and 2, order to be decided.
I worryingly suspect they might, because I think they've kind of dug themselves into a hole. Certainly the Texans seem to be all on board with exactly what they're doing. And is it Easterby? Jack Easterby seems to be pulling all sorts of strings. And, he used to be the preacher, basically, at the Patriots. And now he's some sort of evangelist, apparently, at the Texans. And it doesn't work, but they seem blind to it. I mean, John, quickly, name me the Eagles coach.
No.
Thank you. That's my point. Nick Sirianni.
Oh, yeah.
His first press conference, dreadful. But
how bad was? I mean, how bad was his press conference on the
Adam Gase scale?
Gase scale, which is how we should judge on the Adam Gase scale. When he came out with his eyes like
it was
the bad guy.
Bad.
He looked like the judge in Who Framed Roger Rabbit when they put him in the dip.
It was as bad. It was appalling. It wasn't good. It was worse than Matt Patricia sitting there with his hat on backwards in his first press conference as the Lions coach. It was bad. So,
and who's the Texans head coach?
Not a clue.
David Culley. I had to look it up as well.
David Culley. Did he come from the Lions? I think he did. David Culley. I mean, this is
from the Ravens.
The Ravens. This is my point, right? A bit like the Urban Meyer thing. If your team is bad, go and find a coach to help you reset. Don't bring in some nobody who hasn't got a prayer. When was the last nobody coach that became any good?
Stefanski?
No. Oh yeah, he had a name for himself.
Yeah,
already.
People were. You hadn't heard of David Culley till just then.
Yeah.
I know.
This is my point. And you watch NFL, you read the stuff, and it's a gamble because everybody's looking for, I could gamble on this and it might work and I'll look like a genius. That isn't the way to create success. That's a one-off every now and then.
I wouldn't say Urban Meyer's a nobody, though.
I would. Sean McVay...
Well, he's not going to be a success, so it doesn't matter.
Sean McVay was a gamble, but it's worked. And everyone's trying to replicate that. That's why Zach Taylor still has a job. And there's too many teams doing that. I know you don't want to go for stale, tried and tested guys that, they haven't really won anything, but they... Marvin Lewis, right? He didn't win anything, but he got the Bengals.
Marvin Lewis did really well.
He got the Bengals to the playoffs in 6 consecutive seasons.
Yeah, with Andy Dalton.
Do you see him head coaching anywhere?
No.
And that's a joke as far as I'm concerned. When David Nobody Culley and Nick Moron Sirianni appear to be able to get jobs, they're not listening. You're barely listening. I'm just saying, I don't get it, and it winds me up. It's not okay.
The best one this year is going to be at the Lions, and it's Dan Gary Busey Campbell.
He's another one.
He's absolutely entertainment. Oh, he's going to be great. Yeah.
One of those three that we've just mentioned won't see out the season.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Won't see out the season, but I think at the Eagles, I think they will, because I think they've invested in that. Because don't forget, 3-4 years ago they won the Super Bowl. And now it's all gone downhill. They can't afford to keep looking like morons.
That's my thing with the Eagles is like, okay, they get rid of Wentz, like him or not. He was still a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. You get rid of Wentz, you put in Jalen Hurts, who had 1 or 2 good games, and everyone thought he was amazing, and then it turned out actually not that great. So, all right, we'll give him the season. We'll give him the season with a new head coach. We'll give him the season with a team that actually isn't that great on paper. 'Cause either people retired or left or they can't afford to pay them. I just think like it reminds me so much of the 49ers a few years ago before Shanahan, where it was like, we don't know who to hire. We've got some aging talent and we're not sure what's going to happen. Let's just hire this Tom Sula guy because he seems like a decent guy and we'll see what happens. That's what it feels like. I think Sirianni is the
most
one.
memorable thing that Jim Tonsula did?
In a moustache.
Didn't he fart in the middle of a press conference? I believe that. There's a clip of him basically just lifting one cheek, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Your point is entirely correct.
So, yeah, I think it's Sirianni. I think that the Texans are still too darn stupid to sack David Culley.
Maybe. Something along those lines. It frustrates me. It does.
I see them both lasting the season and taking them into next season.
God, Zach Taylor effect.
Dan Campbell will be fired because he said something stupid.
Yeah, it does feel a bit that way.
Yeah. At one point he's going to deny God at the end of a
flash Martha Firestone forward or something.
Yeah, exactly, and
cite another riot or something.
Exactly, yeah. They stormed the Capitol.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine that you spent 13 years at a franchise, right? And you were good. You weren't just good. You have effectively carried a franchise with one other player to help you, who was a brilliant wide receiver, right? But all you really wanted that whole time was a running back who was okay and could help you get across the line and maybe win a playoff game every now and then, or just get there. Imagine if you then took your talents to a team that seemed perfectly set up for you, complement of wide receivers, offensive-minded coach, and a running back who grew and grew and grew in stature last year, who then was snatched away from you by an Achilles injury, and you were back to square one with Darrell Henderson, apparently, as your number one running back. Gentlemen, I feel sorry for Matt Stafford. And I don't know what else to say. I really feel for him. Cam Akers getting injured is a catastrophe.
It's bad. But when it all comes out, when you think about it, Cam Akers is good, but he didn't. It's not like he set the league on fire. There's going to be some free agents out there who they can sign. Who just McVay can bring Gurley back for fuck's sake.
As it happens, I just pulled up the available running backs that are currently free agents. So yeah, Todd Gurley's the obvious one. Take a risk.
Yeah.
Devonta Freeman's there. Ito Smith. I'm not sure who's now the running back at the Falcons. TJ Yeldon, Adrian Peterson, Paul Perkins. Paul Perkins is only 26 years old. I thought he was about 40 when he played for the Giants. Duke Johnson.
Yeah.
There Le'Veon Bell, Alfred Morris, Dion Lewis, Frank Gore. Yeah, there are LaShawn McCoy. So, there are players out there.
But yeah, it's a shame because, Cam Akers, giving him that another year, I think could have been really, really, really good for the Rams. And
in fantasy, Cam Akers would have been like a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
I think so too, and that kind of is my point, that he may not have been setting the world alight, but he would have still have been the best running back Matt Stafford's ever had.
Yes.
This is a guy who had to put up with Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick for several seasons as a combination in the backfield. Previously the best running back he's had was Reggie Bush, who had 1,000-yard season while Stafford was there.
And it wasn't Reggie Bush a la Saints.
No, it was Reggie Bush a la, can I have some money before I retire?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I was really looking forward to Matt Stafford having a really good season. I think he deserves more than his career has given him.
I wasn't.
No, fine. But, for different reasons. And now I think he'll just be back to where he was with the Lions, asked to do too much. Unless Henderson or Malcolm Brown do more than we expect. Henderson had flashes, Brown had flashes, but Cam Akers looked like I'm going to be the number one running back.
On the flip side, he has probably got the best offensive-minded coach that he's ever worked with.
Yes.
And he's probably... Calvin Johnson's absolutely the best wide receiver, but he's probably got a much better suite of wide receivers than he's ever had.
Yes.
Or receivers, full stop. The offensive line's okay. So, they've lost a good running back, and it's a bit of a shitter for Stafford, but I think he'll be all right.
I mean, yeah, if McVay is worth all the money that he's paid and the reputation he's got, you look across the division.
Is he worth it?
Well, if you look across the division, Shanahan makes stars out of running backs who come from nowhere. Let's see what McVay can do with some nobodies now, because if he's the reason why we've all got these shitty head coaches elsewhere, let's see if it's worth the gamble.
So this podcast should be entitled "McVay, is he all that?" I'm just saying, because the answer is no. But anyway, okay.
And plus, he's probably going to say something, and all the running back's going to hear.
Sure, McVay will say something.
He will say something, and the running back will go, "That's a really annoying voice," and then just stop listening.
That's very true.
Because he'll probably be in a pool when he says it as well. If it's based on Hard Knocks. He's always in a fucking pool.
He's always topless. It's very weird. Oh, the podcast dogs decided to bring their bongo drum kit out again. Yeah. Anybody else got anything they'd like to throw in the ring before we bring this first of our podcasts to a close?
I got one last one, which is my number one.
Go on then.
Which I obviously didn't go with first.
Because we're obviously going to trash it because it's rubbish. Go on.
It's not rubbish. Are we too down on Tua?
I'm not.
It feels like everyone's down on Tua because
he's not Justin Herbert.
He got taken out of the game and Ryan Fitzpatrick played instead of him. He was coming back from a horrific hip injury. He was a rookie. He had no off season, and he was pretty good when he was fit at Alabama.
I'm not down on Tua at all. I think they did the right thing by managing him. They were a team. Brian Flores is a coach who wants to win, and he was prepared to say, "You're not winning this game. I'm putting in Fitzmagic," who then did go and win lots of games for them. I have no problem with what they did. I think it was a harsh lesson to learn. But like you say, he'd not played. He'd been injured. So I don't think Tua is necessarily going to be a top 10 quarterback many seasons over. But I think he's going to be around the league a long time. I think he's going to be very productive in some situations with the right coach, who may be Brian Flores. And I think it might be another year before you see the best of Tua. He's effectively still a rookie.
Yeah.
And he's under pressure because the Patriots don't have Brady, so they're suddenly beatable. And look at what Josh Allen's doing with the Bills. And the Jets are the Jets, so you should be able to beat them. And he's under pressure for those reasons. And equally, as I was saying, he's being compared to, look at what Justin Herbert's done. Look at what Joe Burrow's done. And this year it's going to be look at what Trevor Lawrence has done, apparently. But I don't think that's. But I don't think that's fair. I think you need to let him mature, get his confidence back, make some mistakes, and I think he'll be fine. It was not a bad pick at quarterback to have Tua Tagovailoa. He may not put up the fantasy numbers that people want to see, but I bet you he wins a decent number of games. The team is good. He will be good. I think he's always going to be one of these players that doesn't elevate the team. He plays as the team is. But then I think we knew that. The Alabama team was amazing. Why would you expect anything different? So I don't think I'm down on Tua. I've just not seen enough of Tua to know any better.
It's Twitter discourse as well, which is always the worst kind of...
Twitter's a horrible place.
It's a horrible place. It's really... I don't
go on Twitter.
It's a toxic shithole. I'm staying away from NFL Twitter because it's just horrible. I'm not down on Tua. I think there's a player there. He just needs to be unlocked. And so far, it was a really horrible first year for any rookie to come in. As I say, as Mike says, I think technically treat him as a rookie again this year because it's the first time he's been able to get the preseason in. Last year was a sort of a bonus for him, but and as well, if he's got the mentality, I don't think what happened last year is a bad thing. You learn from it. You become a better player from your mistakes, from your knocks. I think there's a player there. It's just let's see if the Dolphins are the team to get it out of him.
Fair enough. John, what have you got left on your list that you'd like to bring up? Anything? Nothing?
Nothing.
You were going to say fuck all, weren't you?
I was.
So nearly came out of your mouth. You edited yourself and I felt the need to jump in. I do apologise. Right, well, I've got a couple of things that we can quickly cross off the list and then we can close this down and, Firstly, Jamal Adams. He's about to become the highest paid safety by the sounds of things. Is he worth the money?
Nope.
No.
I also think no. I think he's a good player, but he's not... he has
average.
6 games a season where he's really good, and then the rest of the time he's missing. Is that fair?
He's an above average safety playing in a below average defence. Yeah.
That's fine.
I think the fact that the Seahawks gave up 2 first-round picks for him means that all the power is in Jamal Adams' court.
Yeah.
They have to pay him.
Yeah, they're going to pay him, but I just don't think he's worth the money. Okay,
No,
fine.
no.
Secondly, the Washington football team, and I have written down the old name here, but I didn't mean to, but the Washington football team are now going to go into a second season known as the Washington football team because they haven't made up their name change mind. The Cleveland Indians are no longer. They are now, in baseball, the Cleveland Guardians. They have done that in less time than it's taken Washington football team because their controversy was highlighted after the previous name for the Washington football team. So I'm doing a good job here to work around it. How is it that a team that employs 4 million creative directors can't get this job done?
That's the problem.
There's too many people?
There's too many people.
Or are they too scared of making the wrong choice?
Well, that as well, I think.
If you're if anyone in the Washington football team organisation is listening, give us a shout. We've
got some amazing names.
We've got some consultancy work for you.
Yep.
It'd be very cheap. We'll have you a new name.
Not cheap, reasonable.
It'll be it'll be cheap for you. It'll be
amazing for us.
It'll be retirement fund for me.
Yep.
But still, we'll give you a new name, a new logo. It'll be fine. We'll do it by the end of the week.
Okay.
And it'll be better than some of the shitty options that they've come up with.
Yeah, I've seen some terrible
There've
ones.
been some horrible...
my favourite is still Washington Red Pandas, and if it's not that, I should be very disappointed because that's an amazing name. Okay, finally then, something that I saw come up on, I believe, the ESPN website, but if it's not there, I apologise. And it was simply this, a comparison. Danny Dimes, in for a better season than Dak Prescott? No.
No.
And that's how I wish to end this podcast because that was an actual article. Danny Dimes in for a better season than Dak Prescott? Question mark. No, and it's the shortest article ever written, I suspect.
The fact that even Giants fans would vehemently disagree with that says it all.
I'm excited for the Giants this season. I think they've had a good off season again.
It's hard work carrying a quarterback, isn't it?
Saquon has been on the CMC diet.
Jesus.
He's looking buff.
His thighs are bigger than my stomach.
Oh man, yeah.
That's saying something.
Yeah. The biggest question mark throughout the whole organisation is still the quarterback. So yeah, great.
All right.
I've got one.
Oh, you want to sneak one in at the end here?
It's not a point. It's more of a headline that came up on whilst we were recording. Packers have cut Blake Bortles.
No!
And they're trying to organise a trade for Randall Cobb.
Yeah, apparently that is part of the
part of the Aaron Rodgers
deal. Is he wants Cobb back. That's why the Bears signed Anthony Miller, or the Texans or whatever. Texans signed Anthony Miller because they realised that Cobb was going to be leaving.
Well, on that no news, thanks very much for that. Blake Bortles should be treated with the same disdain as the unmentionable Kaepernick now. It's done. It's over.
I mean, I like Kaepernick. He does a lot of. He's a lot of force for good, but
but not in this context.
As a football player, he's gone.
And I would like to point out while he's not here that Gary, I did win this war. Mariota is still in the league. Just saying. What a hill to die on. Thank you. That has been a pleasure. I really hope people are still listening. There'll be more organised podcast activity over the next few weeks in the 7 weeks to go until the season starts.
Something like that.
Something like that.
Well,
We've
8
got-
weeks, roughly, whatever.
Yeah.
But I've got things lined up. Things will be organised. We're back in person. Paul and Gary will both be back
At some point.
soon. There's holidays and work and things get in the way. I've heard
Life.
Yeah, life gets in the way. Having kids and whatnot. But they need to see our funky disco board that John's using to record this with now.
Exactly. It's like a party, but a very basic box of disco lights.
I really like it. It's
Colourful.
Yeah.
It's amused me throughout. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your contribution to the Snap UK podcast. I shall see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.